I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, a return visit by a guest I really should have on, but I know when I should have him on because people start pinging me saying, hey, when are you going to have Martin Armstrong back on? And I've had many requests for that. He's out with a new book. The last one, this is the one right now, the Cycle of War and Coronavirus. We'll talk a little about this at the end of the interview, near the end of the or end of the interview, I should say. And this is not out in hardback, but it is an e-version right now. And goes right along. You bookend this along with the manipulation of the world economy, which is sold tens of thousands of books. He's a best-selling author. Of course, they don't market that way because of the way they do it at the New York Times in the old-timey school of you can't sell it on your own site, and it has to be in multiple locations. But anyway, I digress. Martin Armstrong, a geopolitical and economic cycle expert extraordinaire, world-renowned. He's in demand all over the world. Martin Armstrong, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
It's always a pleasure to be with you, Greg.
Well, I can't say enough about your demand. Just on my site, people, can you get him on? Well, you're not an easy guy to get. You're in demand over the world. But anyway, I'm happy that you're on. Let's start with. I was reading this past week. The Fed's going to put up 120 billion dollars every month from now until further notice. What's going on with the Fed? Is the economy in worse shape than anybody would like to admit?
Oh, yeah. You also have to maybe dig a little bit, but the ECB is changing its leverage for banks. So basically allowing them to do pretty much anything. Because what's really happened here is that when they went to negative interest rates in 2014, we're now 6 years into this of buying government debt and all the rest, and it has failed to produce any inflation. Mainly because of two factors. One is you have such a collapse in the infrastructural of the world economy. You have effectively over 300 million people that have lost their jobs. And on top of that, you then have these negative interest rates where nobody's really interested in European bonds. So the central bank has been buying them all. And they can't raise interest rates because then their own portfolios blow up. So that they're grasping at straws at this point, just trying to appear to be doing something. Although 120 billion a month sounds like a lot of money, it's still not going to produce, inflation. We have such a contraction in the global economy. The losses are amazing. Sky News showed just driving down the streets in Hollywood, they're full of people in tents. The homeless has skyrocketed dramatically, and the mainstream media won't talk about this. It definitely seems as though this has been all really just political. There's no justifications for lockdowns and things of this nature. The Spanish flu killed about 60 million people back then. To put that on the same level of comparison, we would have to lose over 200 million people today. And the death toll globally from this contrived virus is still less than 1 million. It's nowhere near any of the real pandemics historically. So what's going on? Honestly, what's happening here is that pretty much what I've been warning about. We have the sovereign debt crisis. We have also a monetary cycle crisis developing over the next 2 years. Moving to those negative interest rates, they can't sell the bonds. They can't raise interest rates. So they really have totally wiped out Keynesian economics. That's what that other book about manipulating the world economy is all about, why it's sold unbelievable. It keeps selling out every time we put it on Amazon. We did a printing and they're going within less than 3 hours. So it's been probably the most selling book in the financial area ever in history. It's just, but this is what's going on. It goes into all the details about how they've been trying to manipulate the world economy, what central banks have done all these times. And so at this stage in the game, it's really, we're up against the wall. They have nothing left in their quiver to even put in a bow and shoot. So it sounds very nice, 120 billion the Fed. It's not going to do anything. It's still not going to produce inflation because we have such a massive contraction. With over 60% of small businesses that have closed will not reopen, and we're not through this yet. We have basically the real fear that I've been speaking to with a number of people from different governments is that they put in these restrictions. You can't, basically evict anybody, suspended rents, etc. Well, at some point that comes off. What they're scared to death of in Europe is what's going to happen when they lift the restrictions. Then all of a sudden people can't pay, they have to pay the back rent. So their proposals are saying no rent forgiveness. Well, then the landlords can't pay the banks. I mean, this is such a mess. And the amount of businesses and people that will lose their homes still hasn't even really begun. So what's happening here is there is a significant risk that economically we're still in a major contraction mode, and that can continue into 2022. On the other hand, you have food shortages, things of this nature. The number of oil wells in production in Texas alone, for example, fell from over 400 to just over 100. So the social distancing, lockdowns, it has also created shortages in the commodity sector. So the inflation that we see going into 2024 is from a shortage of supply rather than a speculative demand as we saw like in the 70s. So you have a contraction in the capital formation, which is creating this deflationary side economically. But then the shortages and things of this nature that they have created is at the same time creating escalating prices. So food prices are rising exactly when you've thrown everybody out of work. I mean, you've got food lines showing up for the first time since the Great Depression in New York, Miami, many other different places. So honestly, this is the management of this has been more like Dumb and Dumber. And then you have these people like Gates and Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum with his, this is a great opportunity for the Great Reset. They have no clue about what they're even talking about. The Great Depression was so bad because that was also a transition. In 1900, about 40% of the people were working on agriculture, on farms. So as the combustion engine came in, and tractors were invented and things of this nature, you were gradually reducing the labor force in that sector. Then you got hit with the Great Dust Bowl, etc., and that's what drove the unemployment to 25%. They were never able to go back. If you look at agriculture, by 1980 it was 3% of the civil workforce. So what happened was those people either starved, too old, just basically had to be taken care of, or they had to be retrained, and that's where World War II came in. They suddenly got drafted and they were retrained in the army. And so the only thing they knew beforehand were farmhands. We have the same thing taking place today. So this has wiped out a lot of these small businesses, retail stores. So many have gone out. I used to go shopping all the time at Joseph Banks. It's gone. men's clothes gone. So what's left? I mean, even Macy's shut down a number of stores, and you have Neiman Marcus, you have J.C. Penney. So yes, you have the five stocks that online that have boomed and give people the impression the stock market is ignoring the economy. But when you look at the broad market, for example, the Russell 2000, it has not exceeded last year's highs. So the broader market has not. And there people are just looking at the Nasdaq and the fluff, and that's being misled to them thinking that the stock market is going to be okay. It's a sectorial shift here, which is a real significant issue. So people are going to have to be retrained in so many different ways. So this is not going to be some great reset that you can pull off within, 3 to 6 months or a year. I mean, this is going to take years to even absorb. So that's what we're really looking at. And I don't see this economy-wise recovering till after 2022.
Wow.
So it's a real divergence. You have to look at the economy on one side. People are confused because of the Nasdaq, but you just take out the top five stocks and look at the Russell, and it hasn't made new highs. And then, you have so many different things taking place, and then shortages in all sorts of commodities. So I would expect energy prices to actually rise, not because of a demand, but simply of a shrinkage in the supply. So, I mean, the amount of energy that's actually been not used, or saying, based upon the statistics of what's been produced, that we've now increased our oil supply for another 3 years from what hasn't been pumped.
I know you're not a huge fan of gold, but man, gold, you always said this. There's a lot of things you say that stick with me. You say, people think it's because of inflation. No, it's a lack of confidence in government. Gold goes up when people don't trust government, right? So are people trusting government now? Can gold go up, or what's your thoughts on that?
It's going to take a little bit more time. You have a little, a lot of these people are sheep. You walk around and you see people in cars with 4 people in there. The whole family has masks on, driving down the street. I mean, what is that? So a lot of people are not quite there yet. All right, but when you start going into why did gold go up in the 1980s? First, you had the oil price shocks. All right, then, because plastics and things of this nature were coming from energy, pretty much everything started rising in price. So we saw the same thing in Japan. When people anticipate something's going to cost them more tomorrow than today, then they will buy it. As long as they think it might be cheaper or it's not going to go up, they hold back. So we're still in this contraction period. And that's also why Roosevelt confiscated gold, because people were hoarding. They weren't spending. So he was like looking at confiscating gold so he could then revalue it. Gold is going to go up with the lack of confidence in government as people begin to see what's really happening. And I think that's probably going to be more from 22 into 24 to 25. We're still in this transitional phase. You have the old people saying, oh, well, gee, gold goes up with inflation. Well, it doesn't. I mean, if you just take the amount of money supply over the last 20 years and you put it, alongside gold, you'll see they proportionally do not move together that way.
Yeah, you're right. There's a tremendous amount of mony printing, and the gold is...
Yeah, I mean, there's been such a huge amount of money, and gold is not, I mean, in theory, it should be at like $60,000 if it was that really, that was really the mover. It markets, this is why I would say the fundamental analysts are always wrong, because they try to reason things out, and markets do not function that way. They move in anticipation All right. So if they think something's going to happen, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It will move that way. Um, I mean, as you know, I got called into the Brady Commission when the stock market crashed in '87, and they had this Professor Gottlieb, and from I think he was from MIT or something. And the first words out of his mouth is, "We're going to find out, who shorted this market to make it go down." And I asked him, I said, "Do you even understand how markets function?" And he said, "Yes, I borrow stock from this person, I sell it to that person." I said, "Okay, so fine. So how can a short ever outnumber the longs?" And they just look at you with a blank face. I said, "In futures, every contract's got to be matched."
That's right. For every seller, there's a buyer.
All right.
For
I said,
yeah.
what happens is and in that investigation, they went and they asked fund managers, "Why did you sell?" Most of them didn't follow their own models. They thought the computers were wrong. The Dow was down 500 points. They picked up the phone. They asked the broker what happened. And the broker said, "I have no idea." There was no economic numbers or anything that came out. So it started rumors. Well, maybe Russia invaded Europe. The president was shot with a bullet dipped in cyanide. They were crazy. But the problem is that an institutional guy like that, professional, he picks up the phone. "What's going on?" "I don't know." That's the worst possible answer. He can say, "Oh, the Fed raised interest rates or they cut them." He knows there'll be a knee-jerk reaction. No big deal. All right. When there's no information, then the rumors fly. You don't know why is the market down? Maybe it's going to go down another 1,000 points. Nobody knows because there is no information. That's the worst. So markets move in anticipation. They don't move just simply on facts. And professionals, how many times I'm sure you've heard, you buy the rumor and you sell the news. It's the anticipation is more than anything else. So if people think inflation's going to happen, then they'll buy. If they don't think it's going to happen, they're not going to buy. All right. So we're still in this contraction period. It's starting to change, and I think we got to get past the elections. In the United States, they seem to be the most important focal point, I would say, globally. Everybody's looking to it. And outside the United States, Trump is much more popular than inside. They look at it as Trump is the only person standing against these crazy people. Because if you look at the whole, Gates and World Economic Forum and stuff, the real agenda, and even the WHO came out and said, "Oh, it's climate change, and we really have to adjust." So they're really trying to change the economy is what they're trying to do. And they see no problem destroying the economy, and we rebuild it green. But this is, something that they're just talking around while drinking, some scotch and water. That's it. They're not economists. They've never even stepped out to even talk to somebody in the street. They've never had to do anything. So they're all a bunch of academics and billionaires that sit around and just talk to each other. So, I mean, that's the real problem. And so you have all these people, the small businesses and things. They're looking at this whole crisis, and Trump is the only one standing in their way, which is why they're so against him. If they can take out Trump, then everything you've seen in Europe they'll bring to the United States. I put on our site, the Democrats just put in handing $3 trillion to the IMF. I mean, they won't even give somebody more than $1,200 for losing their job. All right, but that's the stimulus. But they'll hand $3 trillion to the IMF for this global elitist idea. So they have to take down Trump. Then they actually think, which is why I did the book on war, is because then they think when they have the United States, they can threaten and intimidate China and Russia to adopt their green agenda. And there is the problem that you have. That's why I put that book, Psycho War and the Coronavirus. This is all contrived. You got Soros with his, eliminate borders and open society, one government. I mean, that's what the EU is about. Oh, if we eliminate all the governments, then that will eliminate war. I mean, that's a joke. Um, you go to Europe and when they're protesting against the Germans in Greece, they're dressing up as Nazis. I mean, the people still are very much divided.
Do you think that that Trump can? I think there's going to be in the background. I mean, the huge voters, black voters, are going to vote for Trump like never before. He got the majority of Hispanic voters. It's never happened before. I think there are Democrats. They're not all crazy. They're looking at this going, oh, what? I'm a racist because I'm white? Huh? What? White privilege and critical race theory? I mean, I suspect there's going to be, they know that the polls are bad. Do you think Trump can pull off a big landslide from getting people who maybe don't even like him, but wow, the other side is nuts? Do you think he can win the election?
Yes, yes. I mean, our models on the federal level show that he should win. There are certain areas. I mean, we looked at California, for example. It looked like, although he wouldn't carry California, but still, it looked like the Republican vote in California, because of all the businesses, the damage they've done from this, will increase by at least 50%.
Wow.
Um, so it's pretty much everywhere you go, and what you find
people think the Democrats are nuts.
Yes, I mean,
okay.
They've. I've said before. I mean, I used to go actually for the Republican Party when there was a little bit more central, I would say. Uh, Before '99, they would have me go meet various people who wanted to run for president. So I would meet like the governor of Oklahoma, and Ross Perot, etc. Um, and they were told I'm there to advise them on the world economy. But in reality, I was there and they were asking me, do I think that they could mentally handle it? Um, so it was really a part of the vetting process. I mean, I wasn't the only one. I mean, they were obviously testing these people out from different areas. Then in '99, I got a call from the guy we used to call the Kingmaker, and he asked me to go down to Texas to go meet with Bush Jr. I said, yeah, okay, fine, no problem. And he said, but this one's different. I said, what's different? He says, no, he's really stupid. I said, what? I mean, you got to realize, up to this point, for more than a decade, I was involved in vetting people that are they competent. Now I'm told, oh no, he's really stupid. So I said, why would you make somebody, stupid president? And he said, he's got the name. So I was actually asked if I would be chief economic advisor in the White House. I said, look, no way. I mean, I'm advising Toyota and all these different companies around the world. I mean, they'll call me a traitor because I said, forget it. And plus, I got a company to run. I'm not going to give that up for what? For a job for a couple of years, maybe? No, thanks. But I was told they needed to surround him at that stage with qualified people because he wasn't. So, hence Dick Cheney. Now, ever since then, it's been the same MO. You can Google it. I mean, it's a known. Even the Washington Post confirmed that Obama didn't even attend his morning security briefings more than the majority of the time. It was out playing golf and stuff. I mean, this is what they want. This is why they don't like Trump.
He's not that. You don't think he's stupid.
That. And
I mean,
you look at Bolton and the rest of these guys, they want war.
And you don't think Trump, hold on, just I was beginning. So you don't think Trump is stupid? This idea that he's off his rocker, the 25th Amendment, all that, you're like, no.
No. Okay. The problem is he's actually making his own decisions and will fire somebody like Bolton.
Heaven forbid.
I know. That's exactly it. That's the way it is.
And what happens if he wins? Are we going to have civil war like they're saying? I think Barr is already pulling the gloves off. He's talking about arresting people for sedition. That carries a 20-year prison sentence. He's talking about going after the mayor of Seattle, Jenny Durkin, for setting up some country, in the middle with 8,000 people getting raped and murdered and broken into and robbed and beat up and everything else. It sounds like they're going to take the gloves off before the election. That they're going to put a big ice cube in the boiling pot of water.
Honestly, I think they should. They thought that if they create all this chaos, they'll blame Trump and then they win. But it's gone, I think, the other way around. People are fleeing New York City. LA. Over here in Florida, houses are going very fast. If they're up for sale, you're lucky if they're still around within a week or two.
This has backfired on the Democrats.
I think it has. The number of people, I have friends in North Jersey that put houses up for sale, and they're going over asking price. Because people they've fed up, they've had enough, they're moving out of New York City. Then you look at the economic consequences. They have done this to these cities, and you're forcing the people that did pay taxes out. All right, moving out of New York City or Chicago or Seattle, LA, whatever, what's going to be left? These cities are now being that. This policy has stripped them of the very revenue that they needed to maintain themselves.
Stupid. Unbelievable.
I can't emphasize how much the stupidity of these decisions that have surrounded this coronavirus is just amazing. I put on the blog, I just went over to the to the ER room because I thought at least they could, do some, testing. And it wasn't for coronavirus. I had already been tested for that, and I was negative. I walked in there, and they stuck me in a COVID wing for 2 days. Then they said, you need 2 tests to get out. They have to be negative. I was so angry at that point. I said, I did not come here for this. All right. I said, you can call the police, you can shoot me in the back, but I'm going to leave. So the test came back negative. I said, this is the last time I'll ever come to this hospital. Forget it. They get, I don't know. Am I in the statistics that are recovered twice or something because I had 2 tests? I don't know. But they got $3,000 for anybody suspected of being COVID. So they're being paid money to go in.
It's evil. So you think I'm going to come back to the Trump thing because I got you for only a short amount of time. You think Trump can pull it off? You think he's going to win? I think here's my theory is if this is a blowout, and I think it will be, Jill Biden's the key. She's going to watch this and think, you're going to have all this cheating and my son and my husband are up for grabs? Oh no, call the White House. Here's our leverage. We're going to concede right now. I don't care how many lawyers they have. You think that could happen? Jill Biden, that's my theory. I don't know, maybe it's stupid. But I think Jill's the key. She's out on the campaign trail stumping as Joe. So do you think Jill Biden could pull the plug on this deal if the thing is lopsided?
I'm not sure. I really do think the guy has dementia, honestly.
Yes. Yes.
I was invited down to Trump's place in Florida there. And I would say I was impressed the way, I went to go, all right, fine, let me see what he's about on, in this closed setting here. And he spoke actually quite magnanimously about Joe. He says, I'm not really sure at that time who I'm going to be up against. He calls him Sleepy Joe because he really is holding back and saying, he's not all there.
Yeah.
And this is what I was saying about Bush Jr. and Obama. Biden is perfect for what they want. They want somebody who maybe does have dementia, won't know what they're doing, and they're just going to run the show. It's a sad, a sad state of affairs. There were so many other Democratic candidates. Why were they just pushed aside? And you picked the oldest one possible, who definitely has some dementia or something.
Yeah, you don't have to be a medical professional to figure that out.
Yeah, it's just there's something not right about this. And I think it's largely because, what they call the deep state or bureaucracy, there's another agenda that's behind everything, and they're just looking to put him in and take over. And that's what Cheney did to Bush. Cheney took us into Iraq, and he put his old company, Halliburton, in charge. And as soon as Halliburton was going to be investigated, they resigned their American citizenship and moved to Dubai. The corruption is just on both sides of the aisle. It's just, it's just too much to account for anymore.
What should normal people do? I ask this question all the time, and I know you cater to, world leaders and very wealthy people and bankers, central bankers. You have a conference. Every central bank in the world shows up for your conference, which incidentally you have one in Orlando coming up in December. We'll talk about that at the end. But what should normal people do? People. I ask this all the time, and you're the man. Should people just be putting tires on their car and saving food and learning how to code? What should they do? Should they buy gold? Should they buy silver? Should they pay off their house? What should they do?
I think silver is going to be better if I would buy the old coins. That you have to look at it from a wide view. Most people are not going to know what a silver bar, if it's real or not.
Right.
How do I tell it's really silver? And gold, well, maybe that could be plated. So I think like silver coins, which are dated 64 and behind, somebody can look at that. The average person can look at it and know what it is. I would recommend that more than silver bars.
Would you recommend silver eagles?
It depends what the average person's going to be familiar with. They may be familiar with that at some point. I would say not right out the door, but the average person will pick up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But I would say silver will probably be better, mainly because it's a smaller denomination that can actually be used. Because what these people are doing is they're trying to eliminate all currency. And the reason for that is, in their mind, if they can force all the money back into the banks, stop the hoarding, then they'll be okay. I disagree with it, but Europe is the ECB is different than the Fed. All right, the Fed doesn't have to roll its debt. There is still a U.S. market for debt. Europe, there's not. So Europe, all the bonds that they have bought, they have to constantly keep rolling in addition to what they buy. So it's not saleable. So the proposal in Europe behind closed doors is to convert them to perpetual bonds. It's a way to default.
Wow.
So effectively, they just will give you the interest. That's it, and you can never redeem them.
Oh my gosh! I didn't breaking it here first. Wow.
Yeah, look, Italy did this. You have to look at how this has been pulled off before. When Italy got in trouble, you had 90-day, bills. They converted them to 10 years. That was it. This time, you're looking at just perpetual bonds, and it'll be like an annuity. You'll never be able to get, you'll just get a revenue stream from it at low artificial interest rates. So it's really a default. They have no intention of paying off the debt, and they can't. So they're looking at eliminating the currency, which will be a way of preventing competition against them. Then you basically do the perpetual bonds. So even the cryptocurrency is not going to survive. They just simply outlaw it. They're already doing that. I have put on our site. I mean, we have an office in UAE, in Abu Dhabi, and we've been in this fight in Europe simply because the computer writes a report on Bitcoin, and they said no, you can't sell that. I said it's only information. That's it. We're not selling Bitcoin. Anything to do with Bitcoin is illegal. So we've been in this fight with them for like 6 months.
That's happening right now in Europe. In your personal experience with your dispersal of your reports, you can't put out a report on Bitcoin in Europe. That's illegal.
We have to make them. If they want to buy it, they got to come to the United States to buy it.
Oh my gosh, that's another newsflash. So people should buy silver. Should people buy things? Should people buy food in advancement? Are there going to be less food? Should people be?
Yes, I strongly recommend buying as much canned food as you can and stack it away, because food's going to go up in price anyhow. But besides that, you're looking at going into 2024 periods of shortages, which you can see have been created by this crazy lockdown and social distancing. As I said, there was over 400 oil wells in Texas that were at the peak. Now it's just over 100. We're looking at shortages in all commodity sides, from energy off to to the food and the ags. Then you have banks that all these professional portfolios, they're kind of screwed. They all have the same exact thing. They can't sell it. If they sell it and they all try to start selling, the prices are going to absolutely collapse. So what can they do? They have to look at another sector completely. And we've been showing them they're going to have to go into softs into the ag side, because that's what's going on. And despite Bill Gates and Schwab and the rest of them, I mean, energy prices look like it will rise rather than we're all going to go to this wonderful land of electricity.
You say soft commodities.
Yeah.
Soft commodities, beans, corn, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Cattle, eggs, chickens, milk.
He's trying to, Bill Gates has been trying to shut down all meat production. He was a big investor in alternative meats. If anybody else did what he did, they'd be in prison for multiple lifetimes. You can't go out there, oh yes, there should be lockdowns. Oh, the one person has COVID, you should shut down the meat plant. When he is the one that has all the alternative investments. So everything he's been pitching that has to be shut down or closed, he profits because of the opposite side. I mean, he doesn't disclose all these things. The vaccine companies, oh, we're not going to be safe till the entire world is vaccinated. Come on. That's an impossible task anyhow. One person in Bangladesh doesn't have a vaccine, so the rest of us are all going to die. I mean, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. It's fear-mongering, and it's just really to get things going.
Let's talk about your war cycle, and I'm going to hold your book up again. This is really actually not even printed yet. It's an e-copy on ArmstrongEconomics.com. I think you can get it there. It's 500 pages. It's packed full of stuff, so we can't get to it all. I mean, I'd say this to Catherine Austin Fitz. She has a quarterly reports this thick. I mean, every quarter. I'm just like, can't get to it all. But can you give me some nuggets out of the book that's coming out? That's more than 500 pages long. The cycle of war and the coronavirus. What's up with this?
Well, the reason it's so big is we had to cover, because we are international. We have to, the Middle East is covered, Asia's covered, Europe's covered, the United States is covered. You have to, somebody's going to do a report on cycle of war, they would just do one of them. We've got readers around the world, so we had to really cover everything. And so a lot of this is also showing pretty much how the the groups that are involved. Our computers started picking this up in August of last year, and
This is
by
Socrates.
the,
This is your Socrates program.
yes,
Okay.
it monitors the world capital flows. Um, I mean, I can say we had a client in Lebanon, which was the Universal Bank of Lebanon back in the 80s. And they had found a book where somebody had written down the prices of the Lebanese pound every day, going back to the mid 1800s or whatever. And they asked us if we could do a model. So I said, sure. They put somebody on a plane, brought it over. We put it in. And what came out was that their country would fall apart in 8 days. Now, I thought something was wrong. I called them on the phone. My job is to say what the computer says, not me. And I said, look, there's something has to be wrong with the data you sent over because it says your country is going to fall apart in 8 days. And the response was, well, what currency do you think would be good? And that was the strangest reply I ever got. And I said, well, it looks like the Swiss franc would probably be the best thing for you. I said, 8 days, that doesn't bother you? He didn't reply, just says, okay, Swiss franc, right? 8 days later, the Lebanese war began.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Now, the same thing happened. We had a client in Saudi Arabia who was big in shipping. And he called me on the phone and he said, hey, Iran is going to go start attacking shipping in the Gulf tomorrow. What do you think gold's going to do? I said, you're going to tell me a war is going to start tomorrow? He says, yeah. And I said, well, it looks like it's going to jump, at least 20, 30 bucks tomorrow. Oh, okay, great. So what I've learned over the years is that what was the computer picking up? If you know you're going to start a war, you start moving your money. All right. If there was going to be really World War III, you would expect to see China dump all U.S. debt. Get rid of it. Why would you hold the debt of an opponent in war? So capital flows are a key indicator as to what's going to happen. And we can't necessarily always say who it is. In 1998, we had our World Economic Conference in London. And I stood up and I said, Russia should collapse. I give it at best, 90 days. That was in June. And so we're looking at September. That ended up being the long-term capital crisis, everything when all the Russian bonds went belly up. So, they ended up putting that on the front page of the business section in the FT.
That was what, 99, 98? What year was it?
Yeah, 98. What it was, we saw 100 billion going in, but we saw 150 billion coming out. So obviously something was wrong and it was going to break. All right, it broke. We couldn't say at that point who was doing it. 6 months later, we found out the truth that it was the Russians themselves. They're moving money out and hiding it in the Channel Islands so they could claim they were broke to get more money from the IMF. But needless to say, it picks up things that are from a capital flow perspective. So wars don't start just out of nothing. I mean, you have to have, I would say, what I would often say is that wars happen only when people have lost things. When everybody's fat and happy, wars do not take place. So this is very dangerous, what we've done in destroying the world economy like this, for this coronavirus and to create this great new reset, green. You've hurt so many people, you've damaged so much, then people want retribution. That's the seed for war. So then they start turning against their politicians. The politician will say, hey, it's not me, it's them. And you can see it right now with the bureaucracy and what they're doing. the Democrats are already out there saying, oh, well, if Trump wins, it's because Russia interfered. Well, Russia didn't interfere the last time. It's ridiculous. And then at the same time, they're pointing the finger at China, saying, oh, this coronavirus, they destroyed the Western economy. It's all China's fault. China didn't force out all these lockdowns. These were deliberately done over here by models that funded by Bill Gates, which were fake. But you can see by this basic, attack on Russia and China, it sets the stage where a Gallup poll I posted just recently showed that the majority of Americans think that Russia is a big, adversary. When you start doing that, it's easier to create war. That's what's necessary. So when you take things away from people, the economy goes down. World War II coming out of the Great Depression. These are the things that you need to take place. You had the real peak in the economy, with Panic of 1893, then 1900, 1903. Then you had the Panic of 1907. This sets the stage for World War I. So you need that sort of thing to develop, and this is what's happening, and it gives me certainly sleepless nights looking at how they're pointing the finger at China and Russia already, which get the average person thinking they're really the enemies, and then when they need to start war, it's easily done.
And where your computer picked up capital flows last year. Who's moving money, and where?
Actually, what we picked up was that, and it's come out now, like Bill Gates started selling a bunch of stock in December. I have inside, sources that basically told me that they were selling stock because, quote unquote, a virus was coming. That wasn't from the Gates side. That was from others in Europe. I don't want to mention their names yet, but very well known. That's all I can.
What are they saying now?
Basically, I think the same thing, that they have bought into. They've sold all kinds of stocks and bonds, which is very telling.
So they're selling. Just so I get this right. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. So they're selling again, like they did in December of 2019. Everybody sell.
Government bonds in Europe.
Yeah. Okay.
So clearly they know what is coming, and that's what I'm talking about, warning about these perpetual bonds. That is an idea that's floating around, and I've been consulted on. So I know what eventually they're going to do it. They have no way of paying off the past debt, and it's a way to basically default on all this debt that is out there. I've been saying for years, why do we borrow year after year after year with no intention of ever paying it back? I put on charts showing that at times the accumulated interest expenditures have reached at points 70% of the national debt. So the money just going to interest, which is going, basically, the bankers are loving it, but it doesn't go to making, hospitals and schools and roads and bridges and things of this nature. So it's this idea that we can borrow to create something, it's just completely false. There's a proposal right now in Britain, which you're going to see in other places, particularly in California, but probably not till after the elections, that because you have so many people at home and not working, offices aren't reopening, so the electrical demands have actually increased. So there's a bill that they're trying to push through right now, kind of secretly, in Britain that allows the electric companies to shut off parts of the grid randomly, whatever they feel they need to do to sustain it. So you can be without electricity in your home for a week or whatever because, oh, we need to do this to save it for the grid for the whole country. So California is already at that same point where their grid's at max. I mean, I don't see how you could possibly get rid of combustion cars and everybody's electric. They can't take care of the capacity now. So I mean, this is again nice visions, oh the Green New Order, etc. But these people don't think beyond the length of their nose. That's it. It's not something that can be sustained.
How far are we going to wrap this up pretty soon here? The war cycle. When do you see we're setting up for war now? When do you see us actually getting a war? And I guess it's going to be a humdinger.
Probably from 2025 to 2027.
And it's war from 2025 to 2027 is what is your best guess?
Yes.
And coming up to that, people should start getting food, getting silver. They should get in.
Yeah, I would definitely, get like canned foods and put them away because you're looking at shortages, all right, which have been created by these lockdowns. I mean, you can go on YouTube and you'll see farmers have had they couldn't even bring their chickens to market. One of them had to kill 30,000 of them. Another one dug a big hole, threw all their potatoes in it. They can't get them to market. So this is causing tremendous problems. I mean, farmers were very high on the list of near bankruptcy, and that was in 2019 before this stuff. So a lot of them are being forced out. They're being, you're going to see a lot of farmers going bankrupt because of all this craziness.
Would you buy gold and silver right now as a hedge? Before in anticipation of what's coming. Physical gold and silver.
I would, look on the physical side, as long as you're not trading it back and forth, because it's going to fluctuate back up and down. But I would prefer the actual coins, bags of silver coins, only because I think the average person would be able to identify it easily. Maybe the Eagles at some point, they probably would start to, to understand back in, I would say, back in the late 70s, early 80s, the average person started knowing what a Cougaran was.
Yeah.
So it just takes some time.
I had a friend of mine call me yesterday, and he said, I'm in a coin store, and there's a little old lady here, and she's about 55, not a little old lady, but an older lady. She's never bought silver before. She's going to buy $15,000 worth of silver. I overheard her saying, would you think Eagle's good? What do you have? And she's actually told me, I've never done this before. But she's in the store by herself buying silver. Is that the tip of the spear? Is that what people, as some lights are going off, going ding, 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 uh-oh, something's wrong?
I think the older people understand a little bit more. The younger people think, oh, well, this will all pass, no big deal. The older people that have been around a while and have seen the ups and downs before, they're the first ones to buy.
Okay. I want to talk about your business. You have Armstrong Economics. People are constantly posting stuff that you write about on Armstrong Economics. You're a brilliant guy. I'm not surprised. But that's your quote unquote free site. You also sell, your book over here in e-copy right now. That's over there, and also your other book, Manipulating the World Economy. But tell me about your other side, your Socrates site. Tell me about what you do for people on that pay side of your world.
Socrates was something that it's the only fully functioning artificial intelligence system in the world. It actually writes reports on over 1,000 instruments every day.
Wow.
And no human interaction whatsoever. The computer is writing all the reports on everything. So it's not biased. It's not. It's just the numbers are the numbers. That's it. So that is being so widely used around the world because it's covering things there aren't analysts aren't even there for. I mean, countries, Romania. I mean, everything's there. So we're we have offices basically in China. We have all the Chinese stocks. The most people are banned in China. We're not, mainly because they know it's a computer writing it, and they don't have to worry about. In paragraph 2, it says, "By the way, overthrow your government." So it's not political. It follows the politics, yes, and will predict, make forecasts, etc. on all these different things. But it's a computer doing it, so there's no bias or whatever. I mean, so most of it are. We're probably the largest institutional advisors in the world because I mean, and yes, a lot of central banks look at it because they know what is there. They know it's reliable, and they know it's not politically
Just the
motivated or
facts.
yeah. It's uh, in the real world, if you created a model yourself and said, "Oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread," nobody in the institutional side is going to even give you a hearing. Because if they looked at it and they lost money on it, what would happen is they lose their job. All right, so they're not going to risk their personal career on something. Ours has a 40-year track record. I mean, we've been called in by everything. I mean, when they were forming the G5, I was called in, by the Reagan administration. I mean, when China was going after the revolution, they were basically going into a capitalistic sign. I mean, I was the first one to be invited over by the central bank, met with them after the 1997 Asian currency crisis. And Margaret Thatcher. I mean, so all the governments have basically looked at this and relied upon it for what it is forecasting for the major trends. I mean, Maggie even came and was a keynote speaker at the WEC. We were there last year in Rome. Nigel Farage was our keynote speaker there. I mean, so politicians around the world, everybody knows what we do. We don't really do any advertising. We don't need to really. I guess it's more word of mouth, but some people don't like what it has to say, and they want to try and bash me personally. Well, I'm not the one writing it, so you're just trying to kill a messenger rather than deal with the message. But this is the way it is. I mean, it projected that Brexit would win, that Trump would win
And,
back in
and
16. I
you're
mean,
projecting Trump's
it's
going
the
to win
only one
again.
doing.
And your computer and you are projecting that Trump is going to win again.
We're going through state by state at this point to verify. The federal level shows that although a tight race, it shows that Trump would tend to win. Now, the problem is this, is that we have this move to mail-ins. And mail-in votes, there are, I think, 7 states. You don't even need to prove you're an American citizen. California is one of them, for example. So that is a golden opportunity to manipulate things. What the computer is showing is that we got panic cycles, high volatility coming in December and January. I seriously doubt that we're going to know who is president on election night or even the day after. And what seems to be the main thing we're pushing with these mail-in votes is that it creates ambiguity. And, I think honestly that the Supreme Court would have to throw that nonsense out. But I've written many times that our legal system's kind of ass backwards. You have to have a harm before you go to court, whereas I think that it should be the opposite way, like the French do it. If they're going to pass a law, the law should be going to the court and is it constitutional before they enforce it. That would be very nice. But unfortunately, doing all this stuff, mail-ins, and you don't even need to prove who you are. I mean, this is crazy. But, there's about 7 states that are doing that, and they're all in the Democratic states. So I doubt seriously that Trump can win any of those. And even when you look at, I can tell you what happened behind the curtain with the last election. I mean, they stole about 3 million votes from Bernie and gave them to Hillary in California.
Yeah.
Which is why Bernie wouldn't initially concede to her, and he went to the White House. And Obama had to tell him to suck it up and take one for the team. Only after that meeting did he come out and endorse Hillary. But he should have won California. But so this is the problem. I mean, Chicago's been famous for decades that people vote there even from the grave. So, you're creating a tremendous ambiguity here, which is why Hillary's telling Biden, do not concede. And they were like trying to say, gee, if we can stretch this thing out, then Pelosi gets to pick the president. If the Electoral College is so messed up it can't come up with a vote in time, then she picks who it is, and she would pick, Biden, of course. I think that would be absolute crazy. It's going to lead to civil war. But I think Trump will be into the Supreme Court before that would happen. But clearly, we may not have an inkling as to what the real vote is going to be until December, at least.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Let's get back with your book is not even printed yet, but you're going to have hard copies. You say you keep running out of the hard copy of the Managing the World Economy. That's your book before this. This is on e-copy on your website. You also have a conference in Orlando sometime in December. Is that right? That you can buy a ticket for and go to?
Well, tickets may be limited.
Oh, okay. Well, watch your website. So just watch Armstrong. I'm going to put up Armstrong Economics.
Probably have a virtual for at least some people.
Okay.
But, it depends upon the capacity. Usually we have in Orlando about 1,000 people, but we had to cancel 2 of our conferences. One was going to be in Shanghai, and then the other one in Frankfurt. So we had to cancel those 2. So, and then with all the restrictions of flying and things of this nature, it's really up in the air how many we can have. So we'll probably be doing at least available virtual, because obviously the people that normally attend our conferences will have first dibs.
It's okay. So, and you should just go to ArmstrongEconomics.com and you'll put the information out there as you can. You can also get this book e-copy on ArmstrongEconomics.com. Then you can also get your other books. And then you also have other reports that people can buy on ArmstrongEconomics.com. You don't pay me to say this. I'm just telling you what you do is all. So I'm not really in business with you. I just want people to know that. I don't get paid on this. I just think what you do is very interesting and very cool. And so, and I'm glad to, tell people about it. So, but that's also all on your main site is ArmstrongEconomics.com, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Martin Armstrong, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.com. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me, and we do try to. I would say the main difference is that we are all over the place globally. So we got offices in China and Singapore and UAE all the way over there. So our audience is international, and that's the way we've always been. So that's why um, we're, I would say, in such demand on a global scale.
Again, thank you for taking time to come on usawatchdog.com. I really appreciate it. Martin Armstrong, the world renowned geopolitical and economic psycho expert. He has his program Socrates, also Armstrong Economics. Martin Armstrong, thanks again for joining us today on usawatchdog.com.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Craig.